Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're taking all that dense textbook psychology and transforming it into a totally practical roadmap. We're going to look at how mental health treatment has evolved over the last 100 years or so. We'll dive right into the most widely practiced approaches to psychotherapy, looking at where they came from, what their goals are, the key techniques they use, and, most importantly, the actual evidence backing them up.
Okay, so when you see this classic ink blot test, you probably picture the cliché, right? A patient lying back on a leather couch, analyzing their dreams while a silent doctor furiously scribbles on a notepad. But the truth is, modern therapy has evolved way beyond those historical stereotypes. Today's practices are incredibly precise and heavily evidence-based. Clinicians aren't just sitting there, they're actually active architects helping you build real behavioral change.
Here's our agenda for today. We'll cover the roots of modern psychotherapy, the humanistic shift, cognitive behavioral therapy, mindfulness and acceptance, and finally, the future of treatment. Let's get into it.
Tracing this chronological timeline, it is fascinating to see how we've moved from the passive interpretation of the unconscious back in the early 20th century all the way to today's scientifically validated behavioral architecture. It's literally a journey of figuring out how to systematically unpack the ghosts of our past to alleviate suffering right here, right now.
Section 1. Roots of modern psychotherapy.
We're starting off in the unconscious battlegrounds established by Sigmund Freud. Now, psychoanalysis was really the first organized attempt to treat psychiatric suffering. The big assumption here was that your early childhood experiences heavily dictate your current vulnerabilities. So therapists use techniques like free association and dream analysis to dig all that up. But here's the catch. Modern empirical research shows a real lack of rigorous support for this approach, especially for severe mental health issues. Plus, when you factor in the high financial cost and how long it takes, it's just not super viable in most modern settings.
To really wrap our heads around these early concepts, let's try a quick thought experiment. Go ahead and think of a close friend or a significant other right now. Got someone? Okay, now isolate just one specific trait of their personality. Just one. Ask yourself honestly, how do you actually feel about that trait? What spontaneous thoughts immediately pop into your head?
Now, the fascinating question is this. Are you seeing this person exactly the way you perceived your own parent? In psychoanalysis, they call this simple transference. Essentially, you're taking old, buried feelings tied to your primary caregivers and literally just pasting them onto someone in your present life. Crazy, right?
Or maybe it's the opposite. Perhaps you're unknowingly projecting how you secretly wished your parent had acted onto your friend. That is another classic example of transference in psychodynamic theory. Recognizing these exact patterns was the main goal for early therapists. They were just trying to drag the unconscious into conscious awareness.
Section 2. The humanistic shift.
The curious paradox is that when I accept myself just as I am, then I can change. That profound quote from Carl Rogers perfectly captures the humanistic movement. This was a massive, direct reaction against Freud's highly deterministic ideas. Instead of viewing people as forever trapped by their past, humanistic psychology argued that we are all inherently capable of self-directed growth. It totally stripped away the therapist's role as the all-knowing authority. The whole idea was you aren't being analyzed anymore, you are simply being accepted.
So, person-centered therapy relies heavily on warmth and a truly equal relationship. The core techniques are things like unconditional positive regard, deep empathy, and non-directive conversations. The therapist lets you lead. And patients generally love this. It feels incredibly supportive. But empirically speaking, the outcomes are actually a bit mixed. Why? Well, it essentially applies the exact same unspecific approach to vastly different clinical conditions.
When you look at them side by side, the philosophical clash between these two early eras is just stark. On the one hand, you have psychoanalysis with its deterministic ghosts of the past, where the therapist holds all the answers. On the other, you have humanistic therapy, focused entirely on the present and your own self-directed potential. In that setup, the therapist is just a warm, empathetic partner, helping you discover your own self-worth.
Section 3. Cognitive Behavioral Therapy.
Men are not moved by things, but by the view they take of them. This bit of ancient wisdom from Epictetus perfectly anchors our next major shift, cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT.
Developed by Aaron T. Beck and Albert Ellis, CBT changed the game entirely by demanding highly structured, measurable interventions. The central idea here is that it's not the environment or the events themselves that cause our suffering. It's actually our cognitive appraisals, the specific views we take of those events, that keep us stuck in emotional distress.
Because CBT is so highly structured, it is backed by an absolute mountain of empirical data. It fundamentally teaches patients to become precise architects of their own change. The goals are super clear. You target the explicit loop between maladaptive thoughts, emotions, and behaviors. By using concrete techniques like cognitive restructuring, systematic exposure therapy, and literally giving patients behavioral homework, CBT helps achieve what researchers call extinction learning. And the empirical support? It's phenomenal. It consistently shows superior or equal efficacy when compared to other therapies and even to psychiatric medications.
Let me give you a concrete example. Psychological research is showing a massive spike in socially prescribed perfectionism, especially among college students, which leads to severe anxiety and burnout. So, a student dealing with that could use an activity worksheet, just like this one, to systematically break down and restructure those irrational beliefs. They literally learn to challenge the automatic thought that, say, one bad grade means they're a total failure, and they replace it with a more adaptive thought process that actually builds resilience.
Section 4. Mindfulness and Acceptance.
Building directly on the success of CBT, the field then transitioned into approaches that essentially scientificized Eastern contemplative practices. But here's the twist. Rather than actively fighting or changing your thoughts like in CBT, mindfulness-based therapies encourage you to just accept your current experiences without any judgment. Approaches like dialectical behavior therapy, or DBT, and acceptance and commitment therapy, ACT, focus on cultivating a really attentive awareness of the present moment. The goal is to stop you from getting tangled up in those negative thought spirals. And the data is really promising. Empirical support is steadily growing, showing solid, moderate effectiveness, especially for anxiety and mood disorders.
Section 5. The Future of Treatment. If you want to truly understand something, try to change it. This quote from Kurt Lewin is the perfect launchpad for where we are headed today. Modern scientists are engineering some seriously advanced digital tools to actively change and improve behavioral health across huge, diverse populations. The treatment landscape is shifting at lightning speed, and we're definitely not confined to that traditional 50-minute hour in a therapist's office anymore.
Think about it. Today, a busy working parent can just pull out their smartphone for real-time symptom tracking or jump into a clinician-supervised CBT module right from their couch. There are even these incredibly innovative cognitive bias modification programs. Essentially, they're specialized video games designed to automatically rewire problematic subconscious thinking patterns. They train your brain to naturally ignore harmful environmental triggers like substance cues. It's a total game changer for accessibility, especially for marginalized folks or people living in rural areas who might not have easy access to care.
And right alongside the tech boom, neurobiology is pushing some wild boundaries. Get this. Researchers are actually experimenting with biological agents to boost therapy. For instance, they're administering specific antibiotics right in the middle of exposure therapy sessions. Why? To biochemically force the brain to accelerate that extinction learning we talked about earlier. It sounds like sci-fi, but these integrative approaches are quite literally maximizing how fast and how well people recover.
So I want to leave you with one final, pretty big thought to chew on. As you become more empowered to navigate your own mental health care, and as these treatments lean more heavily on mobile apps and video games, how will you establish boundaries? How do we ensure that these incredible digital tools enhance our well-being without completely replacing the fundamental human connections we literally all need to survive? Something to think about. Thanks so much for exploring the fascinating evolution of psychotherapy with me.